Hello everybody, welcome to the inaugural edition of Startup Parable. Now this is an initiative by Microimage together with ReadMe, the leading technology magazine in the country, towards inspiring and motivating the next generation of entrepreneurs. Also, we want to use Startup Parable as a platform to feature interesting stories from the startup ecosystem of the country. Now today I have the utmost pleasure in introducing a unique gentleman. Now before I get into that, let me share a story. Some time ago, one of our senior engineers walked into my room and said, he's by the way a fantastic engineer. He walked into my room and said, Harsha, I have given my resignation. And he told me, when I asked why, I found my dream job. Now I know what his dream job and passion was. That was to develop and build games. In fact, when he joined Microimage, he in fact influenced us to start a gaming business development unit. But since we were very focused on a particular segment, a particular set of domains, we didn't want to pursue that. Then I wholeheartedly wish him all the very best where he ended up in this particular gaming software company. So today I have the pleasure in introducing Prithvi Vairasinghe, founder of Dawn Patrol Games, who gave that dream job to one of my senior software engineers at that time. So Prithvi, welcome to the program. So Prithvi, tell me, you started off as an analyst with Credit Suisse, then ended up in interactive multimedia space, eventually in the gaming industry. How did that all happen?
Well, it's not as exciting a story as you might imagine. In 1999, right before the dot-com bubble burst, things were very exciting. I was just graduated from college, got a job as an analyst in New York City, as a very low-level analyst, I might add. I was basically a glorified number cruncher, just entering a bunch of stuff into a database all day. Quite frankly, the job was boring. It's not what I wanted to do, even though I had studied finance and business for my undergrad. Also, being a Sri Lankan in America, you have to get visas and all kinds of approvals. So you sort of are limited by the kind of opportunities that you have, or rather it's up to the opportunities you can make. So while I was looking for jobs, I found a job in a manufacturing company working for the marketing department that would also give me a visa to stay. So I made the switch from banking, which was very boring at the time, to this marketing job out in the outskirts of New York in Long Island. And subsequently after that, the dot-com bubble burst and a lot of people lost their jobs. So I was actually very lucky then to have a full-time job in marketing, although that was not very exciting either. But I did work my way up from the marketing, the copy, to doing the graphic designing, and then around the time interactive design was happening, buzzwords like macromedia director were very hot then. People were figuring out this thing called Flash. So I also got excited with this, growth of basically what we know today as the media-driven web.
Okay.
So I started doing that for this company, and after a couple of years, I realized that this was really what I was focused in. And then I went to school and did my secondary degree in digital media. Right. And technology with a focus on game development.
Right. That's how you switch from the finance industry to the multimedia space.
Yeah, basically taking what opportunities were available and then sort of molding my my opportunities from there. Right. But the big switch happened when I went back to graduate school. Right. Also around the time the second economic downturn was about to happen. So things were sort of pushing me out of finance and marketing and into digital media.
Right.
And
That's how it started. So how you ended up with the gaming industry?
So after I graduated, my roommate, who also went to the same school, he had a job at MTV Networks, being producer of video games. And at the time, Flash was a very big thing, and web games were really growing as a medium. So I was recruited by them, MTV Networks, to set up a game development team making games for all of their properties. But it was basically, again, an opportunity given to me by my roommate who opened that door for me. And I never thought I could be making video games for a living, but there it was, and so I took it, yeah.
So what made you start Drone Patrol Games, and why did you select Sri Lanka? Why didn't you do it from US? What made you come here?
Yeah, good question. So after about 6 years at MTV, sort of learning the business and seeing the rapid evolution of digital media, nowadays web games are sort of ubiquitous and people barely take them seriously. But back then it was very new. The same thing happened to mobile games. When mobile gaming first came out on J2ME and all these little glitchy games, no one took them seriously. But now, they're a multi-billion-dollar industry. Same thing with tablets. The console industry, which was what AAA games was all about, started going digital with digital downloads. So really, you see technology impacting the industry in big ways, and it created opportunities for smaller teams with less capital or less avenues than they previously would have had in the big gaming sphere to get into games. So I think mobile games were the first to really show that one guy could make a game that would sell millions and millions of copies. And started really removing the barriers for entry into the space. Whereas before, making a console game, and still to this day, costs at least $10 million to begin with, and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. You have guys that can make a game now in literally their mom's basement, and maybe they can have some success. So with that sort of leveling of the playing field, I had a really good run at MTV. I just launched my first console game, which was a hit. So I had a little bit of buzz going about that I could leverage then into something. And I thought about doing a startup. At the time, maybe 2007, digital startups were sort of the hot thing. It was emerging. People were getting bought out and acquired, and a lot of people were sort of jumping into this field. So I wrote a proposal for a startup, originally in Singapore, because Singapore actually has the infrastructure to sort of fund these kinds of ideas. Well, my goal had always been to try to come back to Sri Lanka. Having left the country at a young age, when I was 12, I went to India, and then after that I went to the States. It had been about over 20 years now since I had been back. But my family is here, and I always had the drive to somehow come back, but come back on my own terms.
So how did you find the talent? Because we don't have a gaming industry in Sri Lanka. So when you initially thought about this from the US, what were going through in your mind?
I was honestly thinking that I was doing something risky, very risky. But I had faith in the people here who are highly skilled and highly creative, that I could find people and I could train people. We have a very well-established software development industry here. We have really great artists here, maybe not digital artists yet, but it felt like it was sort of the right time and the right place to take a chance and come back home for me and try to build something here, try to start a movement maybe, and bring some of those opportunities to people to think that, hey, maybe I can start a video game company. I have a few friends that can code, and I know how to make art. And that's really the great thing about what we do, which is independent game development. You don't need a lot of money. You just need people with passion who want to learn and get better. So that's...
So how was it like when you set up at that time? This was in 2010?
2009.
2009
I started, but we actually only set up the studio 3 years ago.
Right.
So
how did you find the initial capital? Who were your initial co-founders?
Right. So Sri Lanka Shipping, which was the company that funded us to come and set this up, was also one of the companies that I sent this proposal to. I sent it to a bunch of companies all over Singapore. We were working with the Singaporean government called the Media Development Authority, the MDA, right? And I was trying to get the funding through there, but we didn't get as much as we wanted from Sri Lanka. In fact, we got less than half of what my true goal was. But, you know, a bird in hand is worth, you know, more than two in the bush, or whatever they say. So I had the capital, and I thought I could come here and then set it up and hopefully catapult that into something that would be successful.
What about finding the initial talent now? You need people with some unique talent, some artists, good graphic artists.
Yes.
People who can really build good gaming engines and work around, hack around existing engines.
Yeah.
How did you find this talent?
Honestly, I found a lot of people through LinkedIn.
Right.
So when I was setting this up, I did a lot of, you know, posting on LinkedIn. I scoured websites, forums, trying to find people that were interested. A lot of online research. One thing though
you did this all by yourself. You really try to find people by yourself.
Yeah. Just spending days online looking and seeing what I could find before I could actually come here physically and start meeting people. So I was still in the States while this was all going on.
Right.
But I did partner up with 3 other people, 3 from the industry and 1 from the TV and movie industry. So 3 of those people I knew from grad school, that we went to school together, and 1 of them I had worked with in a professional capacity on this big commercial game success that I had worked on. So I brought those guys together. They were all based in the States at the time. 1 of them moved to Norway after that. So they were the partners who set this up. So we were sort of the brain trust, with 2 guys being in the States who could lend their sort of expertise. I would come down to Sri Lanka. The animator from Norway would come down to Sri Lanka. And then, you know, we'd have 2 here, 2 there. And then collectively we could find people in our networks and start training people. That was the idea.
How much of training do you have to give to transform this local talent? The required level to cut a good quality game of your expectation?
Yeah, well, you know, the thing is that you can find talented people and getting them to sort of buy into the level of commitment and passion, really, that's required to want to exceed your own expectations, right? That's what it's about. You can't really find people that can do a job. You have to find people that want to do this job, and that's all they want to do. And it took us a little longer than expected or hoped to actually sort of ramp up the team. Some people we had to pick up from a very raw stage, and we trained them over a period of 1.5 years before they could actually start contributing to the production cycle. We brought in an expert from the UK after their sort of industry imploded there, an ex-Sony guy who came in and started training some of our people as well, but he left after a year. And it took us about a year, I'd say.
Right. So tell us, what was your first product? How was it like building your first product with this raw talent, all kind of people working from different locations? What was it like?
We made a game called Robotanica. which was our first sort of big game. It took us about 10 months to learn from the beginning how to use the technology, how to set up the pipeline, how to get everybody involved. And we were using this game engine called Unreal at the time. And I actually initially set up this team to work on digital games for consoles, which at the time of myself writing this proposal was sort of the emerging hot new thing. And then within that year, the iPad came out.
In 2010, yes.
Right. So this digital console space, which was called still XBLA and PSN, completely evaporated. You know, right now it's nowhere near what we thought it would be. And you know, the iPad and mobile are this huge gaming juggernaut.
So do you think iPad and the smartphone really kill the console, or will eventually bury it?
I don't think they'll bury it. I think they just created a new platform that nobody had envisioned before, and now people's attention is divided.
Right.
You still have the people that play console, but you have this equally large, if not larger, group of people that would play stuff on mobile. And we were sort of right in the middle of that transition. We were a company that was set up to do one thing, but then had to sort of midstream jump and start doing something else. So we set ourselves up to be console, but then we try to make something mobile. So that was, you know, a bit of a mix-up happening, and then in the middle of that, we're trying to train people. Right. So as a result, you know, things took longer. The product wasn't where it should have been, but it was our first product.
So it was a console product. Your first product was a console product? Or?
It was a mobile product made from console technology.
Right.
Right. So we had this issue of like basically trying to fit this giant feature set into something very tiny now.
Right. So it was not properly designed for mobile.
No.
It was
no.
just evolved out of.
Yes.
Right.
Sort of evolved on the fly. And I think if you see the game and you sort of know the story behind it, you'll be like, I think they started off somewhere here and ended up somewhere differently. But I guess that happens with a lot of products that, you know, that's designed on the fly.
Right. So where is the biggest money right now? Is it in the console space or in the smartphone and the tablet space?
Well, like I said, they're two different markets. The console.
If I ask you this question, if you're building a new game, net new game,
yeah,
where will you put your money?
Yeah. Well, I guess to answer your question, we don't have the money to build a console game. We don't have the team. Our team is about 12 people.
Right.
For a console game, you need about 60 people. So we don't have that scale. So by default, we fall into the smaller sort of platform. So mobile. We could make stuff for handhelds. We could make stuff for this digital console space, which I first talked about, but that market is all but dead, I think. So you have two different kinds of players. The people that would play on their phones might not necessarily identify themselves as being gamers. You know, this, you know, Candy Crush players and all kinds of other Vil type games that Zynga created. It's a huge obsession. People play it on Facebook. And those people are very different than people that play PC games and console games, sort of the hardcore, what people initially think of as gamers, you know, these bunch of like young guys, lots of energy and drinking, you know, weird kinds of energy drinks and yelling at each other.
Right.
Yeah, so that's one segment, console gamers. Probably inaccurate to describe them as young aggro males now because that demo is really diversified. And then you have this whole casual segment, which could be people from as young as 6 to as old as 70, right, that are playing these mobile games.
Right. But what I've seen in the recent times is smartphones are getting powerful as ever.
Yeah.
You can run very powerful games in latest Android and iOS devices.
Definitely.
Now also the technology has evolved. You can seamlessly connect these into a HD TV.
Yes.
Don't you think that eventually the console will go away where people will just seamlessly connect into their HD TV and use this little thing on their hand to play a very powerful game?
It's certainly possible, but I think that people use their phones and see it differently than they see their consoles.
Right.
When somebody plays a console game or a PC game, they are deciding that, okay, I'm going to sit down now for a few hours and just get sucked into this thing. Whereas on their phones, they're like, oh, you know, I have like a few minutes to kill. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to do this thing. So as a result, the most popular games on that device are things that are designed to use up small segments of time throughout the day. You'll come in and you play this game for 5 minutes, 20 times during the day. Whereas on a console space, I'm sitting here, I'm not moving, don't disturb me.
Right.
I'm going into my cave now and I'm going to join my buddies and we're going to go take down this cave.
Right. But what if the revenues explode on the other segment?
Well, that's what's happening now, yeah.
If console guys get continuously pressurized for revenue, because at the end of the day, it's about the market size and
yes.
right? So,
yeah. So I think to put into perspective, you're looking at, you know, the mobile game space, which is probably about a $12 billion industry a year, and the console space, which is probably about 60, if not more. Only because, you know, those games sell for like $60, the mobile games sell for $1.
Right.
But you can see that eventually these two things are going to come on a collision course. I don't know if two will enter and only one leaves, but you're definitely going to see a lot of crossovers happening.
Right.
But I think the mindset of the players themselves are different. Because the people that play mobile games, like I said, might not even think of themselves as gamers.
Right.
Gaming now is so ubiquitous. They're like, no, it's just this thing that I do. Like my mom, she's a gamer.
Right.
Right? Because she religiously plays competitive Scrabble every day.
Right.
I can't talk to her when she's playing Scrabble.
Right.
But she's not a gamer in her mind.
Okay.
But she's definitely a gamer. She's got all the tendencies.
So, if I recall right, Neutropia was one of your biggest productions.
Right.
What was the biggest technical challenge that you had with your team while building this?
So this Nitropia, is, I'd say, the first big-scale game that our team took on that was designed for tablets and mobile from the get-go.
Right.
So we specifically focus on tablets and making it mobile. The big challenge that we had, I mean, there's so many challenges that you go through on the fly, but the big thing that we had was trying to get everybody on the same page. Because even in our team, we're sort of divided by people that, you know, want to make things that are cute and cuddly, and other people that want to just shoot stuff. So to get everyone on board to be like, okay, here's the vision, here's how we're all collectively going to make this thing and make it different than whatever is out there. I think the buy-in, and it's a constant process, right? You sort of have to get everyone on the same page. Everyone has to commit to a certain level of quality and, you know, push themselves to go beyond that. But that's probably not specific to Nitropia, but just in general to games that can succeed.
So how long did it take to build this game?
We've been working on it for about a year.
For a year, 12
Yeah.
months. 12 months.
The first version took about 10 months, and then after that we're working on different versions of it. So the Android version, the Amazon version, and the PC version, and the expanded content. So we actually did the idea as a pitch for a big publishing company. They didn't buy on the pitch, but we still had the prototype, and then we decided that, okay, you know what, we like the prototype, so we're going to make it into a full game. So,
right. So building the game is one of the challenges, but getting yourself out there, getting eyeballs on your game is a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Now, how do you, a company based out of Colombo, starting up, how you are trying to get into that?
Right.
Because I feel this space is exploding at this given moment.
Yep.
So what is your strategy and how you are going to get there?
Well, if I'm really honest with you, our strategy is we sort of hope for the best.
Right.
Because there isn't a lot that a small team like us can do apart from grassroots things, right? So we're all over the web, we're all over social media, we send out review codes to the press, you know, we're trying to talk to people, we enter into competitions which we have been selected for, we go for showcases, so we took the game to Singapore, took it to San Francisco, we were going to take it to Amsterdam, but we ran out of time and money. So it's really a hustle game at that stage. You just got to get on your feet, call as many people as you can, show it to as many people as you can. We signed with a publisher as well that was supposed to, take on some of this responsibility. But at the end of the day, it's your product, and nobody's going to sell your product better than you. So you pretty much just have to keep going. You have to try anything you can do, speak to as many people as possible, because we don't have $1 million marketing budgets to go out and acquire users.
Now, you didn't try to leverage some of your contacts in the US to seek out
I did.
investment?
Oh, yeah, I did. When I was at MTV, I gave a lot of people a lot of work because I probably produced over 100 games during my time there. I worked with tons of developers, tons of media. But the thing is, once you're out of that and you're doing your own thing, you're just a nobody, right? So all these guys that I'd taken out for fancy dinners and buy drinks and schmooze and this and that, now I'm on the other side. Hey, none of that counts for anything anymore. You find out that harshness pretty quickly. So yeah, I tried. I reach out to people, and I think to be fair to them also, like they also need the right opportunity. They can't just be like, oh, this guy's my friend, I used to know him, I'm going to give him. Although sometimes it works like that. Right. Yeah, once you're out of the big brothers, big pockets, and you're in your little pockets, it's a different ball game. So it's been a struggle.
Right. You didn't try to approach any venture capitalists to raise Series A sort of funding rounds or something like that? Is there any specific VCs in the gaming industry that you can approach and show something?
Yeah, I think that in order to do that, we need to have a product that's monetizing. Right. So yes, you can go with an idea, but that pool is dried up a lot.
Right.
And you probably need the right avenues to get access to those people.
Right.
Which
is it monetize which matters or the traction which matters?
Well, I think you need something that is making money. It doesn't matter what the size is, because you can find users if you have something that's making money, right? So if your lifetime value is greater than the cost of acquisition, right? That's the equation that the VCs want to look at. They're like, well, what are the metrics? Okay, this game is making more money than it costs to get users, so now we can throw a bunch of money at it and scale it up and get the users, and so this $1 or 80 cents or 50 cents you're making from each user will get you 10 million users now, and you're going to be making a lot more. So user acquisition is actually a lot easier once you have something that is converting. And that's what people look for from the VC side. It's like, if you got something, we'll scale it.
So what about Nitopia? Doesn't it have a business model where you generate revenue?
It does.
How do you generate revenue out of your games?
So in our game, we give the game away for free as a trial, and then if you like it, then you can buy it. So it's sort of like a try before you buy, which is different than what's popular now on mobile, which is free to play, which is a different model where the entire game is free, but to get the really, really cool stuff, you have to pay. And,
buy those nuggets. Stuff.
Yeah.
So how that gaming psychology works? How did that transition happen?
Well, it's kind of a sad story because people like me, who we describe ourselves as indies, and we're sort of always talking about the good old days of gaming when games are real. Now you have these free-to-play games, and you only actually monetize less than 5% of your users.
Right.
So you might have 10 million people, but only 5% of those people are actually paying stuff in your game on a regular basis. And that's where, these billions of dollars of revenue are coming from. And it's kind of sad that the model has sort of devolved to this state where basically what you have 95% of people, your players, your fans, who don't think that they should pay for your content, or aren't interested enough to pay, or aren't engaged enough to pay. So you're sort of resorting to these sort of tactics, like retail tactics, to get people and convert them. It's like putting a sale sign in front of the store and, giving you 3 for 1 and 1 for 3 or something like that, right? So it's a bit of that psychology. And the really big companies that understand this are measuring everything that their users are doing with analytics. And they're tuning those analytics and the behaviors of the players to get more money out of them, which is very different from how games used to be made, where you had a team of people trying to make something beautiful and creative and like sell people on this idea. So it's definitely a change happening. I personally think it's unfortunate that this is the way that the games market is going, but I'm powerless to stop it, So what we do is we're sort of that one ship that's sailing against the current and hoping to find their, Valhalla somewhere else. But we're swimming against the tide here. In the kind of games we're making.
So at this given moment, what are some of the biggest challenges you're going through with all these shifts happening in the industry? And also operating in a unique place like Sri Lanka. And if I may recall, I don't think there's any other gaming software company based out of Sri Lanka as unique as yours.
I think there is maybe one company that because we did some research. I don't think they're inversed, and I know there's a couple of smaller players doing things. The guys that did the Colombo ride, for example, which is this little 3D tuk-tuk game. There are people trying to do it, but I don't think anyone came in and raised capital and set up the infrastructure to be a fully dedicated gaming house. In that sense, we're probably the only people like this. But for us, the struggle is visibility. We have a game. The people that do find it, they enjoy it. We've got some, press talking about it, but that voice is very small. It's tough to try to get people to look at your game when, you have 100 new apps coming out on the App Store every week. I think now it's averaging about 6,000 apps a month. So that's sort of what you're competing against, right? You're one of those 6,000 that are coming out every month. So if you don't get that leg up, you don't get that feature, it's pretty much feast or famine, right?
So with all these challenges, how do you keep yourself motivated and stay focused with this mission of yours?
So you have your ups and downs. I think at the end of the day, if you don't jump into this thing with like a burning passion, you won't be able to sustain it. You have to be able to drive your team through that, because no matter how bad it gets for me, the team has to still feel like they're doing something that they believe in. So if you keep those guys motivated and you keep them sort of psyched to be working in games and sort of doing hopefully what their dream job is, the guy that came and spoke to you, Janaka, who's one of our key guys. As long as he feels like he's doing his dream job, there's potential is still there for him to make something awesome, right? So you got to give your people the runway and the chance to come through for you. That's kind of what you hope for.
How do you see the future? What can you do to create an industry, a gaming segment in this country? Since you have already started this, even though you're going through a challenging time, don't you think we still can do it? There are many Janakas out there who are really passionate and go with their current jobs in various tech companies, but they want to do something they are really truly passionate about.
I think we can do it. I have this theory that basically a lot of our motivated youth here, we eat too much of mama's cooking. And by that, what I mean is that lives are pretty comfortable. At the end of the day, I'm going to go home. My mom's got a nice meal waiting for me. Puta, come eat, great. we're not hungry enough, maybe, that you take that risk and say, you know what, I'm going to do this. Some people do, yes, without a doubt. But in general, there is a sort of comfort level here that people have that takes the edge off. Until people really want to strive and take risks, and I don't know if that risk comes from just from being at work or from being in an uncomfortable situation where you're like, screw this, I'm going to do this. Right. But maybe that's a problem, and I'm sure there's lots of people with passion. Yeah. People are really good at being like, you know what, I can do this. Flappy Bird, I could have done that. I could have come up with that idea. So I'm like, yeah, well, do it. You really don't need to know about, high-level programming. You don't need to have the world's greatest artists, Right. Shut your mouth, get off your trap, and do it. Just do it. Yeah, just make it. So I think that we do have the potential. We certainly have talented people, smart people. But maybe we're a little too comfortable going home to mama's cooking that keeps us a little, not hungry enough,
So what are your future plans for Dawn Patrol games? How do you, after doing all these things, how do you foresee the future? All these challenges ahead.
Well, I hope that, regardless of what happens to us, Dawn Patrol as a company, we do give other people at least the thought that, hey, you know what, we can do this too. Yes. If we can inspire some other people to start making games and, come talk to us. I'd love to collaborate. I'd love to share what we've had. I was at the Good Market a couple of months ago, and I saw this guy walking around, and he had this GDC T-shirt, which is the Game Developers Conference in China. And I was like, I know that T-shirt, because you never see anyone wearing that here. So I went up to the guy. I was like, hey, did you go to GDC? Yeah. And he said, yes, I was there. And I was like, well, are you a game developer? And he says, yes, I'm making my own games. I code, I write, do my art, and it's tough and this and that. So I was like, hey, we're making our games too. And then he recognized us. He's like, are you Dawn Patrol? And I was like, yeah, we are. So that's great, and we brought him here to the office. We showed him around. I said, if you have any questions, come and talk to us. We'd love to try to help you. If I get more people like that guy, I don't think he started games because of Dawn Patrol, but more people doing it and more people that would look at what we are trying to do and say, they're doing it. Yeah. Why can't we do it? And to them I say, yeah, why can't you do it? So that's what I hope. I mean, obviously I hope for success for Dawn Patrol, and we can keep on doing this forever. And all the girls that work so hard here, I want them to be rewarded. Those people are your lifeblood, right? Your team is everything. So yes. But that's obvious, right? Obviously, I came here to set up a company. I want to be successful. But what I really hope for is that we can inspire some other people to do their own thing, right? Because you don't need all these big tools. You just need some drive and some passion and maybe less rice.
So to wrap up, if I ask as final thoughts, what's the message you like to give to any aspiring entrepreneur?
I would say, if you have a passion, don't take any excuses, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Everybody is really great at being an armchair expert. Everybody thinks they can do it. Only very few people are driven to do it. And if you are one of those people, you have no excuse but to do it, right? Because if you don't, you're just not going to be happy with yourself for not having tried, and you're going to get old and miserable. So it's up to them.
So thank you, Prithvi. Behalf of Startup Parable team, we wish you all the very best. That's a fantastic way to wrap up. That was a fantastic message, rather, to wrap up the inaugural edition of Startup Parable. We'll see you again with another edition very soon. Thank you.